Welcome to Artscape. I'm your host, Bill Harris, and I have a great show for you today. We're here with Collette Caprara, and local artist, and you brought some of your beautiful paintings with us. But before we start talking about them, tell us a little bit about yourself. Now, I read a little bio about you online, and you were certainly, it sounds like early on, influenced by illustrations, like childhood illustrations?
Illustrations and golden books.
Oh, okay, I remember the golden books.
In particular, there was one golden book with different holidays, and it really struck my heart to see the little kids.
How old would you have been at this point?
Probably about 6 or 7, and I really wanted to do those kind of drawings. So at the time, my dad used to get his shirts laundered, and they would have these shirt cardboards in there. I would raid his dresser and get those, and that was my drawing material, with the cardboards in the folded shirts. And both parents were very supportive of me. They didn't really ever complain about that. And
so early on, you're just drawing sort of just out of your head?
Figured out how to make little lines to make motion and stuff.
Oh, yeah?
And also animated films. Disney really affected me, just the grace and the beauty of the animated films.
So now let's speed up a little now. You're in high school. Are you ever thinking, like, I want to be an artist when I grow up? Or is it something you'd done that from age 7 on?
I drew whenever I could, but I never really considered it as a career.
Did you know artists? Did you know anybody that was a professional artist?
I would take workshops around. I was in a really small town of upstate New York, so there wasn't a lot. I'd go to their little art gallery, Elmira, New York.
Right.
But I did keep painting, and actually Tommy Hilfiger was in my high school, the class behind me, and at a very young age, he was an entrepreneur and had this little building or a little shop called Down Under. Someone let him use the basement of a store. And I did a mural for him, his first mural.
Is that right?
Kind of
Your first commission was for Tommy Hilfiger?
Yeah.
Do you know if that's still there?
He asked me the same thing. I saw him once at a promo, but I think Elmira flooded out like Fredericksburg did, and I don't think at all.
What was the mural of?
Kind of Alice in Wondery type stuff.
So still the Disney theme?
Yeah, but it was more like in the late 60s, so
right.
Little 60-ish.
Right. So now you go off to college, you're a philosophy major.
Philosophy and English literature, yeah.
And you sort of put art on the back burner, not really making art, or? It
was a choice. I thought I could pursue art, but I thought philosophy would help me develop more substance, like more character. I really seriously thought before I tried to get content out, I had to have content in my heart and mind too, so I did pick philosophy.
So you really took philosophy thinking that it would enrich your art?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I guess to a point it did. Probably one of the things that really influenced me in the art too was my senior year was in England, and that was the beginning of travel. I never traveled outside hardly of Elmira before that. And
yeah, we were going to get to that because you've done a lot of travel. I think it comes up in your art too.
But with a lot of people from the late 60s, early 70s, we hitched around through Europe and Morocco. And
yeah. Now at this point, were you doing it just for adventure, or were you looking for art?
Adventure.
Yeah.
But we were exposed to a lot of art.
Right.
So, in fact, I would come back and do murals. I did a mural for a local hospital and save up the money and go back with another friend. So for 3 times we hitched through Europe.
Do you think the mural's still in the hospital?
I don't know. It was in the pediatrics ward.
Oh, no kidding. So that's interesting. That's kind of hard. Were you just out there freehanding it with oil paints, or?
I don't even know what they were. Probably latex wall paints that I mixed together. So
now you graduate college with a philosophy degree. You go and get a job.
I started grad school. I have a master's in philosophy from the University of Michigan.
Okay.
And but yeah, I had a series of jobs and
unrelated to art.
Yeah. And mostly toward writing and editing, because that was what my training was. After I got married, I was still kind of more on an intellectual bent for this development of the South, but my husband's very public conscious, service-oriented, and he opened a whole new realm to me. And worked with a person called Bob Woodson, who works with grassroots leaders, and did a lot of documentation, helped him write a book, and put out a magazine for him. And he really was a major influence in our lives, both Bob and the people he worked with, to kind of work with low-income people in a style of empowerment to help them.
So at this point, you're probably not making a lot of art, or you're just doing it on the side, sort of?
Yeah, not not too much art, just as a hobby.
Right. So is that how it was for probably the last few years, or the few years after that?
Yeah, I still am an editor and writer for the Heritage Foundation.
Right. And we were going to say that
DC.
you really are a writer, a world traveler, and an artist. So what other writing do you do now?
I really enjoy doing the Young Life column for the Freelance Star. It's just a thrill to talk to people working with kids, you know, because you hear so many. I would say like 9 out of 10 of the people I interview say they're doing the thing they want to do in their life. They've always, either when they were little, they could feel the warmth of the spotlight and they wanted to be a magician, or, you know, just the thrill of performing for kids and seeing that unadulterated dynamic between your audience and yourself.
Right.
So it's really uplifting, and it's a window to the community too.
Yeah.
And I think all those things, working with the low-income neighborhoods and the grassroots leaders and working with our community here, that's part of that nourishment too that I was hoping to get intellectually through philosophy. But I think the more exposure you get to people in all different walks of life, the more it deepens your heart too, and then you have more to express to it. It affects the way you see your subjects and what you want to express from what you see when you paint.
And do you think that's happened? Do you think that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you have a deep well to draw from for your art. And do you feel like now your art is reflecting all those years of experience and
I think every person's like that. Whatever you do,
Yeah.
the decisions you make, the way you perceive a situation, it's different for every person. It definitely is the compilation of everything that's happened to you in life.
So at what point in your life did you start taking art a little more serious, that you wanted to do it a little bit more?
We lived in Alexandria for a while, and I took workshops in Arlington. But we moved here about 17 years ago when our son was just going into kindergarten. And I kept hearing the word Johnny Johnson from everybody. So one day I just found out his studio number and called him, and he was so generous, as always, typical Johnny,
Sure,
and said, well, come on down to the studio. I was shocked. I kind of hung up the phone and went down, but immediately that day he laid out water paper for me, and
That's great.
my first drawing was the shed behind his studio, and he's been a long-term influence on me.
And that's been almost over 15 years,
Yeah,
right?
17 years.
Yeah, it's funny how many people come through here and bring up Johnny Johnson. I mean, I think people that aren't familiar, he's really a pillar of the art community locally
Sure
here.
is.
An old teacher at JM.
Completely generous and nourishing. You just go in his proximity and your heart rate slows, or your blood pressure lowers or something.
And you could still just go in and see him. He's a member of Art First.
And he has his workshop for artists.
And I think it's on Charles Street, I believe.
His studio's on Charles Street. He works through the Dorothy Hart Community Center
right.
with his workshop.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Collette about some of the artwork she brought with us. We'll be right back with Art School.